Good afternoon. This is Bob with County Records Research. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar, January 25th, 2017. And today we're going to be looking at how to use the website. I've activated the visual portion of my screen, so you should be able to see our website as we're speaking. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the option to log into my account. But before I do that, I just want to point out this is the new image of our website that you're looking at. You can see we have the 5 states that we cover here on the left-hand side. You can see on the right we have our free property search option for non-subscribers to get a quick look at what we do. We also have our 5-day free trial option for people that want to get started on the service and use the option of activating with 5 free days. You'll also notice if I scroll down the page, we have changed the format a little bit on our website. And so what I have is I have the different control panel options to use the site. And I've also got different links to the different pages within the website. So you'll notice that we have on the right our foreclosure processing information, and this is for people who want to start a foreclosure on a loan that they have on a property. To the left of that, we have our training and support information. This includes our Foreclosure 101 article that gives you an overview of the foreclosure process and the different ways that you can buy foreclosure properties. We have our industry terms and definitions page, which will give you a link to the various definitions, terms that you would access when you want to look at property information on the site. This is our terms and definitions page. Okay, Foreclosure 101, this is the article on the different stages of foreclosure and how to buy properties. Okay. We have our free resources and links page. This is a series of internet links to different sites that you can go to for real estate clubs if you'd like to join. Flipper Connection is an online meeting place for people that are involved in investing. Foreclosureforum.com is a website that has information on how to set up trusts. Ward Hannigan is a friend of Kurt's who's been helping people to develop their investment strategies for a long time, so we encourage you, go to his site. There are a lot of really interesting articles that will help you with certain questions you might have about how to set up ownership of properties and different strategy points that Ward likes to make. Below that, we've got different law firms in case you're interested in getting information or help from an attorney. We also have insurance providers and other resources and information. Okay, so this is our free resources and links page. Below that, we have our access for video training. And this is one of the presentations that we've done in the past. You can go view. And then how to use this website is a series of small screen capture videos that shows you how to use the website and set up a search. So we encourage you to go to these training and support options. To the left of that, we have logins to join our affiliate program, our trustee sale bidding service, which is if you want to use our services to bid at the auction for you. We currently have a bidder that's at the auction each day, every day, Monday through Friday, for auctions in Los Angeles County at the Pomona Civic Center, where 90% of your Los Angeles County auctions are held. Below that is the option to check on property search. Then below that is our frequently asked questions. This is a series like our definitions page. This is a series of questions that are asked and answered in a written format so that you can reference that. Below that we have our testimonials page, and then some sign-up pages if you want to sign up to be notified for our trustee sale field trips, our foreclosure basics tutorial, or simply get email notifications on upcoming events. Further to the left, we have About Us, our privacy policy. I want to point out our calendar of upcoming events. If you came to us through YouTube or through one of our emails, then you might not know about this page. If you're joining us live because you've come through this page, then you already know what's here. This is our calendar of upcoming events. We have 3 different sections here. We have the upper portion, which refers to our field trip events. These are daytime live events where Kurt's going to be at a location. Monday through Friday we do live events at the auction, and we time it in conjunction with the actual sales. So this location is going to be on February 3rd, which is a Friday. Kurt's going to be at 400 Civic Center Plaza in Pomona. and he's going to be there at 9:30 a.m. till about 11 o'clock to observe and discuss auctions as they happen in front of you. You'll get a chance to meet our bidder at the auction. You'll also get a chance to ask Kurt specific questions on specific properties as the events take place in front of you. It's a great learning experience, and if you haven't done it already, we definitely recommend that you do so. Okay. Below that, if I scroll a little further down, this is the events like today. These are our website demonstrations, webinars that we do every Wednesday and every Friday. So you'll see that this is the link to join me for today, and obviously some of you did by checking on that link. Below that it says click here to view previous demonstrations. That's to launch you over to our YouTube channel and to watch previous demonstrations. Okay, whoops, that was me. Okay, but I don't like to hear myself in an echo format, so I just like to close that out. So, but that's how you can go to our YouTube channel and be able to observe one of our previous presentations. Now below that is our link to join us for Friday's presentation, and every week this information will be updated. Now do pay attention, because we are going to be changing the timing of these presentations starting next week. So we are going to start running them earlier in the day. They're going to be running around lunchtime. So watch for the change in the timing next week, and we'll be notifying that you of that through this section on the website as of Friday afternoon. Now, further down below, we see our speaking engagement, our evening engagement, and this is going to be with Sam's Real Estate Club, and this is going to be on the 1st, and that's a Wednesday. So this is an evening presentation. So notice most of the time Kurt's speaking engagements in the evening are going to be here at the bottom. Sometimes these will be daytime events if he's scheduled with a particular special event, like he does have one coming up in April in Nevada, which is probably going to be a daytime presentation, but he might have an evening one there as well. And just keep that in mind. Keep an eye on our calendar, because whenever he does a presentation where he's invited to a group like a club, or in the event of Nevada, he's being invited to a note symposium, a note buying symposium, then we're always going to do a conjunction field trip at the local auction location to go along with it on a separate day usually, so that you can do both events and still have time to do other things. So in this case, he's going to be at Sam's Club in the evening on the 1st, which is Wednesday night, from 6:30 to 9. The address is down below, and if you click on the link, that's a map. Okay, and by the way, if you attend another party's event, if they have a door fee or a different way to get into their event, we're not controlling that, it's theirs. So we are going to try and put the information here as we've done for Sam's Club, and then if you want to find out more, then you just click on the link for that group, and then if you need to register for that event, then you can go through their website to do so. Okay, so that's our calendar of upcoming seminar information. So notice everything is down here right below, very convenient to grab onto. You also have access to get to our blog, which is my articles on things that have happened recently. You also can use the contact us option to send us a message, or if you don't have an account yet and you just like to get started, you can click on the register now option and just go ahead and get your account started. You see the 3 pricing schedules we have for the site, and I have the option to select all zones, or I can go down further and I can pick from any of the states, pick from any of the counties, and go ahead and start my account. Remember that we have 3 basic price schedules, pretty easy to understand. One zone's $89, 2 zones is $154, and then all zones is $195. So if you want 3 or more, just select the all zone option and take advantage of the fact that we have now added Washington and Oregon to the site. Take advantage of the opportunity for more information, get your questions answered, research your properties, and then get out there and do some deals. Speaking of that, we're going to get in the site and show you how to do some research. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up on top and I'm going to select the login option, and I'm going to go into my account. Now I'm going ahead and putting in this what looks like the code. It's kind of hard to see this one item right here, so I think that's a B, so I'm going to try it. And it wasn't, so that's what happens when you get it wrong. So we're going to try that again. So whenever you can't make it out, remember that you can hit on change image. This one looks a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and try it again. And there we go, now I'm in. Now, once I've logged into my account, it no longer says log in up on top. Now it says my account and property search. And this is a way that I can go into my property search option. I can also scroll down the page and I can select property search down here on the lower right hand side. So either way, I can go into my property search. Now if I wanted to go into my account, then that's the information that I have up here. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to go ahead and select property search and take me to my property search screen. Now I've been looking at Los Angeles County South today, so it's still selected for me. Now if I go down a little bit further, I've got my county zone selected. I can go ahead and do a quick search of notice as a default. Now to point out a few points, notice that with one county zone selected, I can go down and I can start searching right away. If I want to unselect a county, I just click on the checkbox and you'll notice it's no longer highlighted in blue. If I want to reselect it, I just go ahead and check it. Now if I scroll down a little bit further, here's our single property search option. Now we talk about this a lot on Friday, but we will look at it a little bit today. Single property search is how you research a known address once you've picked out a property from a report. Okay, so single property search is how we look at a known address. It's also a great way if you're soliciting folks out in the field or sending out mailers and somebody calls you and says, hey Bob, you sent me a letter, you asked me, you let me know you could help me with my property, then if you want to, you can just type in their street address. You can say, sure, I remember sending you a letter. What was your address again? And they can say 123 Main Street. Then I would just type in 123 and hit the search button, and I would get a list of properties, and I would look for the one on Main Street, and that'd be their house. Okay, and that way I could use that as a way to respond to phone calls coming in without having to jump into a deep database and look them up a different way. So I can always key in with the street name, the street address, or if I have a parcel number or a trustee sale reference number. Okay, now before we do that, we're going to go ahead and do a search. So I've got, whenever I come down to this section, this is my general property search. Now there's two primary searches that we do on the site. Well, the first one is notice as a default. The second one is upcoming trustee sales. The big difference between the two is that the two are different documents. A notice of default is a notice that comes out at the beginning of the foreclosure process. So when a notice of default comes out, that's the start. And so that's going to have a delinquent amount and an as of date to start the foreclosure process. Okay. Now, those notices of default do not have an auction date on them. So there is no auction date search available. So our system is giving me a listed date range instead. So notice when I have notices of default selected for me when I get started, I can only search by listed date. So it's going to give me a date range that goes backwards 2 weeks and forwards until today. So it's 2 weeks worth of notices of default in recent history. Okay, now if I want to switch to upcoming auctions, I just pick the upcoming trustee sales option, and then I get auction dates that are going forward. So from today's date to 2 weeks into the future. So this is an auction date range from today forward. Now, so if I search notices of default, then I'm going to get the last 2 weeks. Let me go ahead and do this search real quick. And this gives me a list of properties from my search. So this is my notice of default search for the last 2 weeks for LA County South, and I've got a map reflecting 0 to 20 of 149 total records. Okay, so this 149 records represents all the notices of default for this target area within that time frame. Okay, now if I wanted to sort this further, I could go back. Now, for the purposes of the demonstration, I'm using Google Chrome for the presentation. If I wanted to go back, I can further divide my search into categories. I can specify cities or I can specify zip codes, and I can reduce the number of properties. Notice that the more of these blanks I fill in, the fewer properties I'll get. Because if I specify I need Long Beach or Bellflower or Lakewood or Cerritos, I can do up to 3, by the way. Then what's going to happen is I'm going to get less properties. So like right now, this is 149 records, and this includes Bellflower, Long Beach, Downey, Southgate, La Mirada, Compton, on and on and on. Okay, now if I close that out and I decide that I want to go ahead and put in cities, I'm going to do it. I'm going to type in Long Beach. I'm going to go ahead and type in Lakewood, right? And then I can go ahead and I can type in, let's type in Cerritos, all right? Cerritos, okay. So now I've typed in Long Beach, Lakewood, and Cerritos. Okay, now I can also furthermore go in and select the property use option. I can select residential, I could select apartment if I want multifamily. I can be very picky in terms of how I set up my search, but I'm just going to keep it at Long Beach, Lakewood, and Cerritos and hit search. Now, notice what I did is I took a search of 149 records and I dropped it down to only 25 by reducing my search to simply those 3 cities of Lakewood, Long Beach, and Cerritos. Okay. Now, the map reflects 0 to 20 of 25, so there's 5 that I can't see. So I'm going to go down here on the lower left where it says show 20, 40, 60. I'm going to click on the 40. And now I see all 25 records because now it says 0 to 40 of 25. Okay, so this is my whole report, all 25 records. Now, because they're notices of default, I know these are the very first stage of foreclosure. Now, notice how the report looks to me. I've got street addresses, I've got cities, I've got zip codes. I've got a lot size, a square footage, I've got a bedroom and bath count, and then I've got a value. Okay, and then I've got some blank spaces because these are notice of default records. This house is not going to auction yet. Okay, as a matter of fact, I think this one might be a condominium because the square footage is very small, and this looks like this is a studio because it's a bedroom and bath count is 0, 1. So this looks like this is a studio in a building. Okay, it's a condo. Okay, now also notice that I have a senior junior loan column to indicate to me what loans are on the property in addition to the foreclosing loan. So in this case I have what looks like a foreclosing third, and I have senior debt ahead of it that adds up to $652,501. Okay, so I have a foreclosing third with $652,000 senior to it in terms of loans that were already on the property. Now our system is comparing the numbers and it's giving me an auction equity figure that's negative. That's because what it's telling me is that this place is worth about $370,000, but they owe over 6. So comparing the two, it says my auction equity is a negative number. Okay, so all that's telling me is that they're over encumbered with debt on this property and that I wouldn't bid on this one at auction. I would need to figure out a different way of going about buying this particular property. Now, if I want to learn more about this particular property, I would click on the address and open the profile. Okay, so this is an interesting one, and I can tell you this is kind of a lesson learned for all of us. What we have here is a condo that's being foreclosed on by an HOA, but it gets better. Okay, notice that the HOA is in third position behind a first and a second, and the first is $652,000 and the second is $1. So what is this? This is a property that's in foreclosure due to a HOA that's not being paid. But more importantly, we have an owner who took out a reverse mortgage in February of 2015. So we have a reverse mortgage refinancing of a property. Notice if I scroll down, there's a purchase date of October of 2001. So this is interesting to me, and I'll tell you why. Because this property owner owned their property pretty much outright and then took out a reverse mortgage, and that was only about 2 years ago. So if I took out a reverse mortgage 2 years ago, they haven't paid me 652 yet. They've paid me a lot less. So Amy has not been paid the 652, or she hasn't borrowed the total of 652. So I would be curious to find out if this property has any other records in our system. So what I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to copy this parcel number, and what I just did is I left clicked and I copied with my mouse, and I'm hitting the option to copy. Now I'm going back up top and clicking on my left tab, and I'm scrolling up, and I'm selecting the option of single property search. Remember, I told you if I know a property, then that's when I use it. And I'm plugging the parcel number in the third box. Okay. Now, what I just did is I just did a test. I wanted to see if there are any other records on this property, and there are not. So Amy does not have an active foreclosure on loan number 1. She's got an HOA lien foreclosure in third position. So what this is telling me is that Amy has not paid her HOA in a long time. It's at least a year. If your HOA is foreclosing, it's at least a year. And her delinquent amount on this HOA is over $7,000, so it's been longer than that. So my question would be, what's going on with Amy? Now, I have a feeling she might have equity in this property. I have a feeling that if they only started paying out on a reverse mortgage 2 years ago, that she might only owe a small amount. She might only owe, you know, 50 or 100 grand. If that's the case, there's an equity position in this property. Okay, you can't see it, but it's very possibly there. So I would be interested in going to Amy and trying to make her an offer. Now let's see if Amy has decided to put her house on the market. I'm going to click on Zillow, and no, it's off the market. Now Zillow thinks the house is worth 380, and again, this is a condo right on the bay, right there near the water. Okay, now of course on the map it looks like this. Let's see what it looks like from the bird's eye view. Okay, so it's not as right on the water as the map looked like, but it's close enough. This is a nice spot. It's a very nice spot. So what I would do at this point is I would try and see if I can go over and talk to Amy and see if she's interested in selling her property, and if I can put a deal together to buy it from her, knowing that she took out this reverse mortgage about 2 years ago. Now, if she's not paying her HOA, then she could be in trouble. And notice also that our researcher is saying HOA assessment lien, check document numbers and check open liens. So our researcher is saying that you should research this further. Now, doesn't mean there's not an opportunity. We're just saying that you need to do some checking, because you might find an opportunity here that you should take advantage of. Now, let's say if we discover that she's only been paid out a couple $100,000 on a place that's worth about 370 or 380, right? And that the HOA is going to take it to auction if nothing else is done. Okay, let's say we go to talk to Amy and we find out that she is no longer there. Okay, because knock, 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 if she don't answer the door, she don't answer the door. Well, if I can talk to Amy, I can make her an offer. If I can't, then I'm going to be prepared to follow this through the process of foreclosure. Okay, now this is a notice of default record. So let's say that I want to find out more about this particular property. I'm going to go back to my road view. Let's say I want to find out more about this particular property. Notice how geographically this is an easy place to spot. It's right across from Appian Way. I used to live right over here, so I'm very familiar with the area. But let's say that this area, this is a good spot that I want to take advantage of, because I want to know if she gets a notice of sale. I want to know if this keeps going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my search screen, and I'm going to go down here to the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to scroll in a little bit. Let's get down and dirty, right? Look at this. Look familiar? Looks familiar, huh? Now I'm going to use my polygon search function, and I'm going to do this. Watch this. Bang, bang. That's just a simple left click. Bang, 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 Let's do this. That works. Yeah, why not? Let's just do this. Why not? Huh? Now, notice what I just did. I just created a box that includes her property. Okay. Now, once I've done this down to these last 2 points, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the close polyshape option and close my polygon. Now, notice what I just did. I just wrapped a box around the target area of all those condos, including hers. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up here and I'm going to change my search option to upcoming sales. Now, since I went ahead and went from Long Beach, Lakewood, and Cerritos to the polygon, I want to get rid of these, okay, because I don't need those because I'm using the polygon now. Now, what I've done is I've created the format to save a search that will anticipate a notice of sale coming up on this lady's condo, okay? So now, notice I've got my polygon shape. Notice I've got upcoming sales selected and I got rid of the cities. Now I'm going to hit save this search. Okay. Now what the system did, it just memorized everything I just did. Okay. And then it gave me a little box to give this a header, to give this search a name. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this my, gosh, what should I call this? Where is she? She's in, well, Marina Pacifica, good a name as any. So this is my Marina Condo NTS Polygon. So I'm just going to put poly for short. Actually, I ran out of lettering, so I'm going to take the gap out and see if I can do that. There we go. So this is my Marina Condo NTS Poly, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. Now, what I just did is I just created a polygon for that target area, and I'm going to hit activate notifications. Now, if I want to go back to that screen, I can go ahead and hit Marina Condo NTS Poly. Once I've clicked on it, it bounces me right back to my search screen and it refills everything. So there's my LA County South. There is my upcoming trustee sales. And if I scroll further down, there's my little polygon that I made before. Now, if I had saved that previous search parameter where I had Long Beach and Lakewood and Cerritos, then I would have that. Now let me show you something, because remember where we just were. I'm going to go back to my searches. Remember, this is where we just were because I just created that Marina one. Now notice that I have a Lakewood, Cerritos, Long Beach, because I made this earlier today. I have an NOD search. Let me click on that. And notice this is almost identical to the search we just did. So this was my Lakewood, Long Beach, Cerritos. Now the only difference is I had set this up with a 3-bedroom, 2-bath and above and residential use code requirement. Okay, so now I could get rid of those, and if I did and hit my search results, I'd be right back here where I had this list of properties where I found her property. Okay, so now that being said, this is a notice of default property profile. So it's going to show us the loans on the property, the position of what's foreclosing. It's going to show us the property information under property details. It's going to show us her address information, which happens to be the same because it's her primary residence. If she lives somewhere else and this was a rental unit, then we would have a different address here. Okay. Now, we've also got a trustor's name, who's the borrower. This is Amy Whittier. We've also got an owner's name, which is also Amy, same person. To get a reverse mortgage, I do have to have them both the same, by the way. So this is pretty much self-evident in terms of what we have. The only question is whether Amy has fallen into a situation where the lender, the HOA is simply foreclosing. Now in this case, obviously the HOA is being foreclosing because they haven't been paid. You don't owe your HOA $7,000 overnight. That takes at least a year, sometimes much longer. So just bear in mind that the opportunity that we have here is that she hasn't made the payments in a long time. And if we go and talk to her, we might find out that she is in a desperate situation and needs to sell the property, in which case we would offer to buy it from her. Now, if she refuses to sell or is uncooperative, then we could buy it at the auction, but since this is an HOA lien, just bear in mind, HOA liens, it takes us 3 months to acquire title to a property after the auction. So in a situation like this, you're always better to try and get flies with honey than vinegar. So I would go and try and make an offer to Amy and see if I could buy her property. Now, let's say that I really like the property itself and I want to save it to my Properties folder. Okay, then I could go to my Properties folder and drop it in. Now, notice I have a Save button right above the map, and then I have the General Folder option here on the left-hand side. So if I want to save this to my General Folder, I'll just go ahead and hit the Save button, and now that property's been saved. Okay, so now we've saved that property, and then now it's in my Properties folder. Okay, now if I want to go back to it later, then all I need to do is go to my Properties folder, and there's her property. Okay, now if I want to go back to my search results, I left the tab open so I could do that and go back and look at my search results and see what else I've got there. Okay, and I can continue going through the report and looking at more properties. But we've looked at her property as a notice of default record, and we've seen what there was to see. Let's look at some notices of sale instead by going back to property search. So now I'm going to pick LA County South again, and I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to pick upcoming trustee sales. Notice that once I pick upcoming trustee sales, that my auction dates come into play and my listed date vanishes. Now, the auction dates come into play because it's assumed that we want to pick up properties that are on their way to auction. There are several reasons for that. First of all, I have a few different options as far as buying the property. I can bid on it at the auction, but I still have time to go make an offer to the property owner. I had a question here from Elizabeth. If I purchased the property from Amy, do I become responsible for the HOA past due amount? That's a very good question. And I'll tell you, Elizabeth, the bottom line is this. If you go to offer to buy anyone's property, when you go to close your escrow, that's when you're going to discover any liens and loans that need to be paid off. Now, in Amy's situation, she had a reverse mortgage. So her reverse mortgage needs to be paid off in full for whatever they've paid her. So if they've paid her $100,000, you need to pay them $100,000. If they've paid her $200,000, you need to pay them $200,000. Okay. Now the HOA, as a separate lien holder, they want to get paid too. They're owed about $8,000. So let's say whatever you offer Amy to buy her place, that amount is going to go to cover lender number one. It's going to cover the HOA, and Amy is entitled to whatever's left after everyone else is satisfied. Okay, so if everybody else is satisfied and you offered, say, $250 for that place, okay, and everybody else is satisfied with 125 grand, then the other 125 grand goes to Amy. Okay, so she's not first in line, she's last in line to get paid. Whenever we go to buy property, and anytime you buy real estate, just keep this in mind. Anytime you buy a piece of leveraged real estate, whether you're buying a property with loans that are delinquent or loans that are being paid on time every day or every month, right? Either way, when I go to buy that property, either I can take over a loan, which in a subject to situation I can, or in Amy's place, because it was a reverse mortgage, I cannot take that over because the reverse mortgage is like an annuity and it's paying out to Amy versus Amy paying it. If that had been a standard loan, then I could go to Amy and I could say, hey, you know what, you owe the bank $150, you owe your HOA $8,000, I'll give you $250. Okay, and I would use her loan, her leverage in a subject to situation to actually buy the property, and that way I don't have to come up with the whole $250 because I'm actually using her money as leverage. Let me give you an example. We're going to go ahead and do a search of upcoming sales. Okay, so here's my upcoming sales search. Now notice we didn't use that polygon because I went back and I set up a whole new search. Okay, so let's see what we got. Now, this is a search of upcoming sales based on auction date because I didn't make any other parameters, did I? Now, notice I have this tab open for my main page so I can go back. No, I didn't put in any parameters. I didn't use the polygon. I didn't put in cities. So this is just a general search of LA County South for upcoming sales. and I got this big list. I got 317. Now, because my dates included today's date, this also is showing me the results of sales that went down today. So I've got several properties here that went back to the lenders because at the auction the price was more than someone was willing to pay. In all three cases, Lakewood, Long Beach, and Wilmington, in each of these cases, the lenders discounted at the auction, but not enough to make an investor happy. So in each case, these became REOs. Bang, bang, bang. All three of these became REOs. Now notice if I scroll further down, here are three properties that went to auction today in Long Beach, Compton, and Pico Rivera. Now these three sold to investors like you and me. All right, and let's see why. So here's a property in Long Beach on Locust that's worth about $273. Now the lender, I looked at this one earlier actually. I was following this one earlier. The lender opened the bid at $128,888 and 20 cents because that's what they were owed. On the initial notice of sale, the lender specified $125. And then when they got to auction, they said $128 because they had postponed once or twice, so it had gone up. Okay, so it started at $128. And then there was competitive bidding. How do I know that? Because if it was not competitive, then it would have sold for $128,888 and 21 cents. Because this lender was asking for every penny they were owed, and all I would have had to do was overcome them by 1 penny, and I would have been the winner. Now, that wasn't the case here because there was more than one bidder here. You can tell just looking at this that there was at least two bidders that were competing with one another in an auction scenario. Very common if several people were following this because the opening bid was announced before the auction, which it was. So because of that, it went up to $223 and $500. So somebody didn't have enough to overcome, or somebody just looked at the numbers and said, I can't go higher than that. So the person that got it for $223.5 was the person who was willing to spend $100 or $500 more than the other person. Okay, so $223.5 is the sold amount. Now our estimate of value in our system is $273. That could be right or that could be off. When you check your comparables on a property, you always want to double check and make sure that our estimate of value lines up. This house could be gorgeous or it could need work, and the difference could easily be $50,000. So I would double check my market value of a property by driving by and checking it out before I ever determine what my maximum price is for the auction, and then I would have that maximum price for the auction before I go. Because whoever bought it this property at the auction, they would have gauged this. They would have made sure that $223.5 would make sense for them. Now, if the house is turnkey and they can turn right around and sell it, they might make 30 grand on this property. If it needs a lot of work, they could run into trouble. So you always want to double check and make sure you know your market value and your condition of your property before you set your price for the auction. So that's that one. Now this one in Compton on Tajuda, or I probably Chajauda. Oh wow. Okay. Anyway, so this property seems like it's worth about $321. Now the bank was owed $415 and decided to drop the auction price to $319. So they opened at $319 on this property, and somebody said and a penny and got the property for $319 and a penny, because notice the amount is the same. It's unchanged. So in this particular case, it looks like somebody got it for a penny over. Now, the last one that shows sold in Pico Rivera on Calico, the lender was owed $437 and they dropped it to $329. These are drop bids, okay? These lenders discounted. Now, the one in Long Beach did not. He didn't have to, but these two did. So these two properties sold because the lenders were willing to shave their price by about $100,000 to bring it more in line with market value. Now, would I have paid this price? I don't know. Notice how in both in this case, this one in Pico Rivera was opened up at about $50,000 below market. This might have gone for a penny over as well. Now, when we are planning to bid at the auction, we're always gauging what we are willing to pay based on our business model. So people oftentimes ask me, how do you figure out how much you're willing to spend? Well, you need to evaluate your plan. Okay, if I didn't have enough margin in it, I wouldn't buy a property. For instance, if I thought this one on Locust was a mess and there was no way I could get my money back out of it, I wouldn't have paid $223,500. Okay, now the person who bought it might be a contractor who knows that he or she can rehab this property cheaply, and maybe they're going to turn it into a rental property, and they're happy to pay the $223,000 because they're getting it $50K below market. Okay, so in that case, they would make an evaluation. So I'm going to click on the Locust Avenue property and open the profile. Okay, so in this particular case, like I said, I looked at this earlier. I happen to think that this is a person that might have passed on, because as I looked at this earlier, I recall noticing that they had an 06 loan, an 11-year-old loan, that they had paid down to less than half. Okay, so they had paid this loan down to less than half of the original amount owed. So this place had plenty of equity. Plenty of equity. So somebody should have gone to this homeowner and offered to buy their house directly from them, and they would have avoided the auction. So either this homeowner was totally uncooperative, which doesn't make sense if they have a boatload of equity and they can't make their payments, or this homeowner simply became incapacitated or passed away, because if there's no one to do business with, then I can't make an offer hold because there's no one to say yes to my offer. If that's the case, then these are the ones that we pursue at the auction, because it's the only way to become the owner of the property, because the previous owner isn't there to sell it to us. Okay, so that was my presumption with this one when I looked at it earlier today. And now the lender can only ask for what they're owed. So in this case, the lender, which is represented by National Default Servicing, they simply asked for the total amount owed. And as I said, it was postponed twice, so that's why the amount went from 125 to 128. Okay, and then at the auction, it went up to the 223.5. Now, if I took a quick look at this property, I can use the mapping function on the site. Now, what I'm doing is I'm using the zoom option with the wheel on my mouse and getting in tight, and I'm hitting the bird's eye. Okay, now this is what I noticed about this one when I looked at this property earlier. It's kind of funny. It looks like one of these that you would see like in a movie or something, because you've got the big commercial building in the parking lot, and you got this little tiny house here in the middle. Okay, and that's why I noticed when I looked at this that somebody would probably buy this one at the auction because they own something on either side. If I owned the parking lot over here, or I owned this building over here, then I would be at that auction probably willing to spend more than the guy that wants to buy this little house and fix it. Okay, because yeah, this is a cute little house, I guess. I mean, the location's kind of odd, but it is what it is. Now, if I wanted to expand this building, that would be a great option for me to expand this or even use it for a parking lot. Or if I had this area here with this building on the corner with this parking space, and maybe, you know, then it depends on who owns this over here. So the guy over here, the guy over here, the guy over here, any one of these could look at this and go, that's a wise investment, because how else am I going to get this strip of property right next to my commercial property? And now as myself as an investor, that's something else I might have seen and said, you know what, I'm going to clip this one off at the auction, and then I'm going to go to these guys and offer to sell it to them at a nice healthy profit. So I would think any of those people would have done that. And that's why when I looked at this earlier, I thought this was a very curious property, and I thought it would sell at the auction, and it did. Okay, so now let's say now that this one's gone. This one's out. Notice I actually set up a request for an update on this one because I thought this one was possibly going to sell or be postponed. So I actually earlier today set up an update to get an email on this one to get the results. So that'll be in my inbox right now. Okay, so now how did I do that? I went into the system and I requested. Now let me go ahead and see where it says remove me. I'm going to hit remove me. So I just undid what I had done earlier. Now what I had done earlier this morning is I had selected the status change update option. And then I went ahead and I put in my email information. Now it's not going to affect anything now because it's already sold. Okay, and I went ahead and I hit submit, and I had set that up. Okay, now let me see if my email inbox. There it is. Okay, there's my update that I got in my, when did this come in? Let's see if I can see when this came in. So this came in right at about 1 o'clock is when I got my update on that sale. Okay, so right as I was heading out to lunch, I got an email that told me the update on this particular sale. Okay, so I remember I had set it up right before lunch. I had set this up at about 11:30 or 12 o'clock to be notified. So if you set up the update to be notified, you will be. If you want to find out more about the property, then you can use the single property search option and do some more research on the property if you want to do that. If you want to find other properties in the same area, then what you can do is you can do what I just did with setting up the polygon search, so we get sent additional records. Okay, now let's look at something that's going to sale in the near future. Now notice with my report list, I have 0 to 20 here of 317. So when I have a list that's about 20 records, or actually 317 records, notice I got a bunch of canceled ones on here. So let's do something a little different. When I'm looking forward to buying properties at the trustee sale, one of the things that I like to do is I like to bump out the date a little bit. Since now we're past the auctions and these are old hat, I'm going to push this date forward to the 30th, and I'm going to push the other date forward to the 17th of February. Okay, now I'm also going to get rid of any canceled sales by hitting the only active sales option. Now, since I'm making some changes, what else can I do with this search format? What else can I say? I can say that I only want to see multifamily. I only want to see apartment. Now, I can also specify the cities in here. I can also specify by using a polygon, but let's just keep it simple. Let's say I want to see apartment properties in this LA South area going to sale between January 30th and February 17th. And I'm going to get rid of all the canceled sales and hit search. Now, what this just returned is a search that's more confined by the type of property, not by geography. Okay, so notice above the map it says map reflects 0 to 20 of 57 total records. Now, that's cool. It's less than 60. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on the 60. Okay, so now this gives me a total of 57 records to view. Okay, so notice I got my nice long list. Now, these are all going to be multifamily properties in LA County South. Now, since I searched notices of sale and I set up an auction date range, notice that I've got an NTS sale date column. These are always going to be set up by sale date unless I make a different choice in the previous page. So notice it starts with the 30th. And then it scrolls down and goes all the way to the 17th of February. So we got pretty much auctions on multifamily properties throughout LA County South every day. So there's quite a few coming up. There's always a lot more scheduled auctions than there are new notices of sale or new notices of default. And that's strictly because whatever the cause, there's a lot of can kicking in foreclosures. There's a lot of, as you've got properties going to auction, you got a lot of sales that get postponed. Whether the homeowner is putting a property into escrow and wants more time, or they're demanding a modification, they want more time, or they're filing bankruptcy, or they call up and they say, I've got a check coming in, just give me another month. They get postponements all the time because the lenders don't necessarily want to take ownership and possession of a multifamily property especially, but also single family. You're going to find that lenders aren't the Simon Legree that they're painted to be. What they're doing is they're simply trying to get paid. Okay, and if the homeowner or the property owner says, if you give me another month, I'm going to be able to get this fixed, then you'll be surprised at how many times the lender will simply give them that additional time frame in anticipation that they're simply going to be brought current. Okay, when the homeowner or property owner in the case of a multifamily just simply doesn't bring the loan current by hook or by crook, eventually what's going to happen is the lender's going to take it to auction because they're running out of options. literally running out of options. Now, when you look at the multifamilies in our system, most of them will have an estimated value because if it's 4 units and below, it's considered residential. If it's considered residential, then we're pulling comp value from arm's length transactions on like properties in the area that have sold in a recent manner of time. So you'll notice that most of these are going to have a value, if not all. Okay, so now it looks like none of these are going to be 5 units and above. It looks like these are all 4 and below. Looking at the room counts, I'm guessing that's so. You're going to have duplexes, you're going to have fourplexes, you're going to have, triplexes, you're going to have some very small units. So got to tell you, you got a whole mix because you're dealing with areas like in Long Beach where you're going to have some older properties. They're going to have some very small little like bungalows and stuff like that, little studios. So looking at this, if I want to break it out differently, then instead of keeping it by auction date, I can go and I can sort by city by clicking on the word city. So now what I just did is I just sorted them alphabetically by city. Now the website has a little bit of a quirk. You'll notice that when I first hit the city option, that it's going to give me Z to A. It goes in reverse. So if I click city a second time, now we're looking at A to Z. So now it looks like I've got 2 units in 2 apartment buildings in Bell. Okay, that rings a bell, doesn't it? Then I got Bell Gardens, Bellflower, Commerce, Compton, and so on down the report. So let's say I have an interest in this property. Here's one on Clark in Bellflower. Now this says it's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath. So I'm going to guess that that's either a duplex or a triplex. I haven't looked at it before, so let's find out. So now, a couple of points before I open it up. This one's set to go to sale on the 16th of February. This has an estimated value of $689,000 and the bank is owed $684. So it's about a wash, huh? Now, so if this goes to auction, it's very likely that the lender is going to discount at least a little bit to try and make this more attractive because our auction equity is literally less than $5,000. Okay, so depending upon how accurate our valuation is under the estimated value, that tells me that the lender is most likely going to have to apply a discount formula to try and get this property sold at auction if that's what they really want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and put my cursor over the Clark Avenue address and left click and open the profile. Okay, so now I've got the property open on Clark Avenue, and now I see it's right off of Clark near Flora Vista. Okay, and right near the old Red Line rail tracks, that's what that is. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and see if I can see what this property looks like. Okay, so there's the railroad tracks, there's Flora Vista, this is Clark. Okay, so kind of an interesting little setup. What's the lot size on that? That looks like a fairly large lot. So this is 1,261 square feet lot, and it says it's a duplex. So it looks like you've got a house in front and you've got this stuff here in the back. Kind of an interesting setup. Okay, so it looks like you've got a house in front with a garage and you've got this this area in the rear. So again, kind of an interesting little setup. Notice how this one here has a similar setup too, and so does this. So it's kind of an odd way that these are all laid out, but these are probably very good rental units. I would think these are all fairly good rental units to have. So that's how I would look at this. This is possibly a good rental opportunity. Now let's look at a couple other things. First of all, if I was going to buy this one at the auction, I look at the loan dates and I look at the purchase dates. Okay, and what I see is I see a purchase date of 2011 and loans from 06 and 2010. Okay, I got to tell you that makes me cautious. That means I have to do further research to make sure that I'm clear on my loan information and I'm clear that this is a first. The most important thing if I'm buying at the auction is knowing this is a first and having a price point that I've made for myself that makes sense. Okay, now the loan is for $555 from 2006. They now owe $684. They haven't made payments in a long time. Okay, so these folks haven't made payments in a long time. Now it looks like the mailing address and the property address are the same. Okay, so I would have to question what's going on here, because it looks like there was a transfer of ownership in 2011 with this older loan, and it looks like they haven't made a payment pretty much since then, because the loan has gone up by about 130 grand. Okay, so this is an extended period of non-payment, and you'll notice that the trustor is Byung Choi, and that the owners are Na Soo-hyun et al. And oh, this is a mess. Okay, so I would be very careful with this to make sure that I'm sure this is a first and that there haven't been multiple ownership changes on this property. But the main thing is, if this is a first and it was 100% owned by the borrower, this Byung Choi, then what will happen is when it goes to auction, everything that followed gets wiped off. Okay, now if I was going to go make an offer, then I would not talk to Byung Choi. I'd be talking to these other parties, and I would have to give them all to sign off on my offer. Now, our estimate of value on this place is about $689. Now, knowing that it looks like they've got multiple documents on here, I'm going to guess they owe other liens. So I'm going to guess that it's probably upside down as we speak. And I can guess that they're probably going to need work on the property. So I'm going to say that this would be a short sale at best, or I'd be buying this at the trustee sale auction. Okay, if I wanted to find out more about it, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run a search with my single property search option to see if there's more information. Okay, now notice what I just did. I just did my first step in elementary property search to find out if there's more information to find out about this property. And what I discovered is that I've got a loan that evidently was owed $798 in 2014, and that's curious. So it appears to me that it's always been a first that's foreclosing, but that the dollar amount is variable, that in 2014 they appeared to owe $798 on that very same loan. Okay, and I see what looks like a completely different name of ownership on the property. So that's always very curious. Notice the owners are completely different. I'm scrolling down. So this is curious. I would have to say, if I was going to buy this property outright, I'm definitely going to make sure I go through escrow. I'm definitely going to make sure I get title insurance, and I also have to make sure that I'm making an offer to the right person. I'm thinking, because of the complications involved here, my main goal with this particular property would be to make sure this first is a first, this loan from 06. Now I'm going to do really quick a check on Zillow, just to find out if there's more information. Now Zillow says it's worth $633. That's not why I'm checking it. Now we said it's worth $689. Zillow is down about 50 grand less. Okay, but the main reason I'm going over here is this. I want to see if it's listed. And no. So I see they bought it in 06. Now also notice that we saw a change in title on the profile from November of 2011, but Zillow doesn't show it. Okay, so this was a deed straight across. This was not an arm's length transaction. This was not an escrow sale. So all this senior debt is there. There's complications with this. I would be very careful with these folks. I wouldn't try and do business with them directly. Okay, and if I did, I'd be very careful and not hand them any cash. I would be focused on finding out the best way I can get this property, which I'm going to presume is to be prepared to bid at the trustee sale, and assume that when you take ownership of this property, that you're going to have to get these people out the hard way. Okay, because obviously they've had some issues, obviously they've been changing ownership, and whenever we're researching these properties, we always want to ask ourselves, is this going to be the easy way or the hard way? This one's the hard way. Okay, so always do your research, always check your properties, and always ask yourself, what's the best solution to using the data? Okay, and on Friday we're going to look at some more properties, some more opportunities in the area, and we're going to find you some more deals. This has been Bob with County Records Research. This has been our Wednesday webinar on how to do some research on the website. Again, join us on Friday and we'll see what other deals we can find. Thanks. Have a great day.